Hey guys, Drew Grit Scott, Bulletproof Saws and BLUESAWS.com. Hope everybody's doing alright. Well, I'm on my 8 trillionth Bulletproof G366 for the week, and I'm getting tired of those. There was some other saws in the middle there, but I'm back to these guys again. So, I wanted to talk about a few things I'm going to tell you up front, so maybe I won't forget. I'm going to tell you about flywheel remover tools. I want to talk about where you have to use the torque wrench. I know you're going to argue with me, and I know you're going to say you don't have to, but I'm going to say you have to. I am going to talk about pressure testing again, because a lot of people hit me up on that, and just some of the little things that I use. So, let me start off with these clutch removal tools. Oh, darn, you know what I did? I had a flywheel removal tool, not clutch, flywheel removal. You know what? I gotta pause you. I had a flywheel, and now I gotta go find one. Alrighty, guys. I think I have what I need. I have a 460 flywheel here, and the way you remove them, this is the tool that Steel recommends. And Jesus, I think it's the same OEM number on either of them. It's a nice little tool, screws into the flywheel. Real easy like, because it's threaded. You do that on a 44, 46, and then I'm going to talk about, I think it's the 66 in it. I had a 46 flywheel handy. Didn't have, no, maybe I do have a 66. You know, I'm so unprepared for these videos. No, I'm not ripping that apart with you guys on the horn here. You know what? Let me see something. I got a 360 up here, so that fits a 360 also. I think it must be the 660. Anyhow, so it screws in. Then you take I believe it's a 16 millimeter. It goes in, pops it off the crank, and your flywheel's removed on a 44 and a 46. This is the one that we sell the most of. The problem that I have is, for this just about the same money, and if there's $2 difference in between them, I like this black one better, and the reason I'm going to tell you that is it not only does the 22 millimeter side, it has the 26 millimeter side, so you can flip it around, and I believe that fits the 660 and 880. Don't quote me on that. I don't have an 880 handy real quick for me to double check, but for the $2 extra, this fits a hell of a lot more saws, and we'll sell 10 of these before I sell 3 of these, and I think it's just because people don't realize that this is a better tool because it's reversible. That's all I was going to say. It's flywheel puller. If you search it on BLUESAWS, you're going to find them. It's the black one, and you can see it's threaded on both sides. 22 and 26 millimeter, kind of nice. And we sell the heck out of these because I think this is what Steel says in the IPL service manuals to use when the other one, and I don't know if this is a Steel version, like if Steel has a double-ended version, I'm not sure. This is what I have. One thing. Next thing, torque wrench. Inch-pounds on cylinder heads. In my opinion, and we're going to talk about this real quick, we tell people to Loctite bolts. A lot of these bolts that are used on the Steel stuff they're fluted on the bottoms of the bolts. So they could dig into the metal and they shouldn't back out, okay? On cylinders, I stopped Loctiting any cylinder bolts quite a while ago, and I've had good success with it. I torque them to spec. The 66 is 133 inch-pounds. A 361 or a 44 is going to be 102, I think I have written up there, inch-pounds. I make sure I torque them all to spec and I don't have problems. Too loose, obviously they're going to vibrate out. Too tight, and I've made this mistake before, I didn't always use the torque wrench. Listen, I know how tight by feel, and you know, I could just put my wrench on it and I could tighten them by hand, and you know, sometimes you get, oh, does that feel tight enough? Let me tighten it a little more. You know, that could be a little tighter, and you feel it, and listen, you can. You have a lot of leeway there to a point. Too tight, and those cylinder bolts will snap the heads off. I've seen it on OEM saws, I've seen it on aftermarket saws. There's a torque spec for a reason. I bet you they spent a lot of money figuring out what the perfect torque is, and I think the way that goes is, you know, M3s have a torque spec setting, M4s, M5s, M6s, whatever the size is, has a torque spec, and probably a lot of science behind it, so I'm telling you to follow it and just throw a torque wrench on them. They're not that expensive. You get inch pounds, you torque them, you're done. Oh, I might hit that one more time before I'm done. So that was on torque wrenches. I have to pressure test this, and you guys know I have a bunch of homemade block-off plates that I use. Then I also have, for the intakes, the steel block-off plate, and as far as I know, Steel makes 2 of these, and there's 2 different sizes. This fits a crap ton of saws, and then the other one fits a crap ton more. I'm not talking about 500 eyes or anything with, you know, any weird type setups, but the old stuff, the 44s, 46s, 260s, 361s, 200, all the older stuff, these 2 fit. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of new ones out, and they're not all that expensive. I'm thinking about stocking them. If people are interested in them, I'll get some in stock. But they're kind of nice to use, especially on the 361, because your block-off plate has to block that impulse hole that's in the intake loop. A lot of other saws, I generally will use one of my plates and then go in through the impulse line. So what I'm going to show you, I go into my little things. When I'm first building a saw, if I'm building it from scratch, before I put the real handle on, it's nice because just the cylinder's sitting there. I have intake boots that I filled with epoxy that I could throw that intake boot on because it's not a pain in the neck because the rear handle's not on. And I can then use that to block off, go through the impulse, block off the exhaust, pressure test the saw. Pretty easy peasy. I have 3D printed block off plates for the exhaust. I have them for different saws made out of aluminum, which is super easy for most guys to work with. Aluminum cuts real easy with a hacksaw or a bandsaw, or geez, you could use a zip wheel on an angle grinder. Cuts super easy. You could get, I don't know, that's probably 1/4 inch, which is kind of nice. It feels durable. And you have to adjust for the hole sizes on the cylinders. So that's either a 395 or a 372. I have no idea what that is. I should mark them with what saw they go to, but I know I could just start picking through and match it up if I don't remember. I also have them made out of, that's like 16th inch plate. I have 8-inch plate, and anything that I can find that's dead flat and relatively clean, you know, I could sand it off as long as you don't, you know, create low spots when you're sanding it. And then all I use is rubber inner tube. Cut a couple holes in the rubber inner tube, block off plate, screw it in, and you're ready to pressure test. And I've said it before, guys, the most important tool you can own for diagnosing chainsaws is your leak down tester. Vacuum and pressure. I don't care about compression. Listen, I can feel compression, I can feel a saw. I can't tell you if it's 180 pounds or 200 pounds. Maybe I can a little bit, but that doesn't matter in diagnosing a saw. Maybe it matters for bragging. Hey, I did this, and now it's 200 pounds of compression, which every saw I have that's over 200 pounds of compression, just so you know, I hate the fucking saw. Didn't mean to curse. I don't like those saws. They're a pain in the ass to start the first time. In the dead of winter when they're cold, they're a bear to start. They're going to break recoil ropes. Once they're warm, they're not so bad, and yeah, they do scream, but that little bit of extra performance for me is not worth the frustration. I have a few saws that are over 200 pounds. They never get run. I'm not trying to preach, but it's something to think about, guys. I'm sure you're all bigger and stronger than I am. Maybe it doesn't matter to you guys. So I'm going to pressure test this. I just did a base gasket delete on it. I have to go through, pull some more parts off of it, and do some playing around. But hopefully I'll have this all running for somebody tomorrow. Tonight we have to make pierogies for Christmas, so That's going to be going on next, and it's 7:15 at night, and I still have not made dinner, and I think I'm just going to go out on the Blackstone and grill up some burgers. A couple smash burgers. You can see I have my trusty liquid beverage here, the oldest brewery in America, and if you know who that is, you know what I got. I don't think I'm going to have you watch me pressure test this unless you guys might be interested to see if I get a pass or a fail. The last couple, yeah, it was like the last 3 were all perfect, so maybe I should video this because I'm sure this isn't going to pass pressure just because of Murphy's Law, but maybe. I don't have much else to talk to you guys about. I'm still getting a lot of questions on, you know, when's the 260 coming back and when's the 3120 coming back, and like I said, guys, I don't expect them anytime soon. I'm not trying to turn my back on you guys, but I'll get this set up while I'm talking. On the 361, this is a pain in the neck to get on, actually. I don't love it on this saw because there's not a lot of room with the handle and you're almost bending the carb studs up. I have my ring in my intake boot. I've told you guys before that screwed me enough times. And then you got to get over that and make sure you don't hit the fuel line. Oh, the other thing with that is, depending on the saw, and listen, if I'm using a block off plate, let's see what I got. Let's show you here, guys. This is good stuff. So, I hope you guys can see it. Here's a little round block off plate, 1/8 inch steel, that I use on a lot of steel saws. If you notice, it's got an edge filed off pretty close to the stud hole, because some saws you can't get it in there. So I'll make these and I'll grind them. If you need a tool, make a tool, and if you have to modify it to fit something, modify it to fit something. You can make another in 10 minutes. It's not that big of a deal to cut out some metal, aluminum, whatever you have, 3D printer, 3D print one, and have a block off plate with some rubber. But with that, the carb studs, what are they, 3 inches long? They're not threaded all the way. So you can't run nuts all the way down to this. So you could use a piece of wood, put it on there, just to take up the non-threaded slack on the studs so you could get your nuts on. I have, for different saws, I have different sizes of tubing. I think I've showed you guys these before. I have little short pieces of tubing that can fit right over the studs to take up those threads, so I'm not trying to thread all the way down, and then again, if you get to the bare spot, you can't thread all the way down. So that's all I have to do with that to get down to it. And then it makes it real simple. So I have a bunch of different sizes depending on, you know, a 46 has super long carb studs. The 361s aren't as long, so I have shorty tubes for that. And again, I just found a piece of metal tube that wasn't too big that the nuts would go into it. It was small enough that the nuts make contact with it. And now I have something to hold my pressure test flange. Let's see what we got. Clutch on the driver is nice because I put it on 3. Go right down, no, I'm not over tightening it. Then I give it a little bit of extra. A little bit of extra. Well, I guess we will pressure test this in front of everybody. See how we do. Once in a while I'll throw a little 2-stroke oil on that rubber gasket, again made out of an inner tube. These big truck inner tubes that we float in the pond with or float down the creek with, and when they pop, I'll cut off pieces and save them like a hoarder, just so I have rubber for whatever gasket material I need to make. And that's one of the things you'll find in more than just chainsaws, but we're talking about chainsaws, is that you can make a lot of tools. I know fellas who've actually made their own leak down vacuum pumps, pressure testers out of, what did one fella tell me? Mitch, I think, told me he used a blood pressure thing from a blood pressure cuff from the hospital he had, and he made one out of that and got a one-way valve maybe, and I don't know how he's doing the vacuum portion, but he's got that all set up and he just made it. They're not an overly expensive tool, and I think it's so indispensable it's worth buying. That's a Mighty Vac. It's as good as any. Been happy with it, had it for years. Think they're rebuildable. Never had to rebuild it. I do oil it. I try to keep it in pretty good shape. Alright, let's see what we got. Well, we need a spark plug. I have a drawer full. I actually started getting rid of them, of Farmer Tech spark plugs. Never had problems with them. I'm sure some people have, but I don't use them enough. But I really never had a problem with them. But instead of taking the crush washer in there and crushing it, and you're only supposed to use those so many times, and the crush washer could get deformed enough that it's not going to seal. I use these Farmer Tech ones, and if one stops sealing, it's easy enough to toss it in the bin. I still have the decomp in this. I didn't plug it. So we'll pull that out. We're on pressure. I'll test our hose first, make sure nothing happened to it since last night. She doesn't look like she's leaking. So we'll go over to vacuum. Oh, hey, are our magnets down? Alright, we got our magnets down. Again, I want that cylinder at bottom dead center, or the piston at bottom dead center in the cylinder when I do any of the pressure test, pressure or vacuum. I got us up to 8. 7 is the standard that you're supposed to blow them up to, not 12, not 15. I often do 9, I often do 8, just because that's where it lands as I'm squeezing and not paying attention. 7's, what would you say, industry standard. I'm at 8. I try to get it right, dead nuts on the line. There's not a lot of room in between the hash marks, so I guess you see if it's moving, but I like to be dead on the line so I can see if it's moving at all. And a lot of times, I'll set it down, I'll leave the room, I'll come back and I'll see where it's at. And a lot of my Blue 366 from the video last week held pressure for 3 days. I think I pumped it up to 8 or 9, and it was still at 7 3 days later. So, you see that's a pass. Well, for the video, I'm not gonna do that. I lost a little bit on there in that, not a minute, I don't think. I'm down to 7. So, alright, that's not great. Why am I leaking? And I'm going to suspect it's the spark plug or that decomp. So the only way to tell that, you can't tell it on vacuum, not easily. You do things with smoke, stuff like that. Alright, we are up to 9, just because that's where it went. And what I'll do is I'll assume I have a little leak, and I'll spray that decomp and I'll spray that spark plug. Again, it's a very slight leak. Yeah, it's that decomp. I already see it bubbling. Not saying there can't be another leak, but for how slow that is, I pumped this up to 9. We're at 8.5. If I stare at it, I can barely see it moving. Now we're down to 8. But I also see the bubbles off of the decomp. So I'll pull that decomp out, I'll plug it, and go from there and hope there's not another leak. I don't expect they're too big. And that's it. That's pressure testing in a nutshell, guys. you guys want to hang out while I'm... Oh, you heard that? Lefty loosey, right? Should have a plug here. Blow the spray off a bit. And really it wasn't the decomp itself leaking, it was the threads leaking. It was leaking from the threads, so it needed to be tightened. Probably could have got away with just tightening it, but I don't know. This is such a small saw, I don't know that you need the decomp. I could argue it either way. Why you want it, why you don't. Alright, let's see what we got. I thought I just saw something out of the corner of my eye as I was pumping that up. It was either soap dripping from the cylinder, or maybe it was a bubble at the intake boot. I think I told you in the last 366 video that I make sure that I put that screw for the intake boot clamp somewhere where I could get to it in case I didn't tighten it up enough. You got to be careful. You can over tighten those and start cutting into the boot with vibration, movement, you know, just daily use. That clamp can cut into the boot, so you want it tight enough, but not too tight. And it might have just been a drip. Something caught my eye. Doesn't hurt me to spray it again. Alright, we're at 9 again. I'll only keep you guys for another minute to see if this falls. I have a 660 build I have to get on. And I was thinking about videoing it. I mean, there's 1,000 videos out there on guys building 660s. I think a lot of them are old. You know, 5 years ago, there was a lot more problems with those kits that you had to massage them to get them to work. I don't have those problems so much anymore. The last 660 I built, I mean, it went together flawless. Every screw, everything just fit together like it should. It was perfect. It really was perfect. And I hope this next one goes the same way. I don't see a reason why it wouldn't. And I was thinking about videoing it and talking as I go, but it's been done, and I don't know if anybody has interest in it. It's a pain in the ass to set up the video and try to video it and all that stuff. So I'm hesitant to commit to that. But if you guys really wanted it, I would do it. Hasn't budged an inch, and I bet you I could go make pierogies and go make dinner and come back, and I'd be surprised if I lost a pound in that time. Anyhow, guys, if I don't get another video out, I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas and a good New Year. I might get something in between there. There's a bunch going on. I don't know. If there's something you guys want to see or know, always feel free to hit me. I know a bunch of you guys call me, email me, whatever. Hit me on YouTube, which I'm not as good with answering, but I'm trying. I think that's it. Merry Christmas, guys. Drew Scott, Bulletproof Saws, and BLUESAWS.com. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, guys.